Hey guys, and welcome to the 7th installment of Updated Builds, a series where I go back and check out Warframes that I already made one or more videos about, and I bring their builds up to date, because a lot of the build videos that I made for those Warframes are very old and horrifically outdated. Now today we're going to check out Nidus, who isn't that old really, he's a relatively new Warframe. However, he did receive a new augment in the form of Larva Burst, which is a lot of fun, and ever since I showcased that augment in a video, you guys have been asking for a build. Now I was kind of debating whether this should be an updated build video or just a regular build video, but in the end I decided to go back and revisit my original Nidus build, tweak it a little bit so that it's slightly better than it was before, and then bundle it together into an updated build video to keep everything nice and organized. So as always, I'm going to show you the builds that I use on Nidus, and I switch between them based on what I'm doing, and I have two of them for you today. The first build is called Mom Spaghetti, and it's focused around the Larva Burst augment. This is fantastic for non-endless missions and generally just faffing around the star chart. And the second one is what I like to call Fantastic Fun, and this is my favorite setup in the entire game. Out of all the Warframes and all the builds I have, this is the one that I have the most fun with, and it's focused more towards high level missions or endless missions in general. And let's start it off with Mom's Spaghetti, which is the one focused around the Larva Burst. Now it's using Stand United as its aura to get some extra armor, but you can use whatever aura you want. Then I'm using Rush in my exile slot, but you can once again use whatever you want. I just wanted more sprint speed for this build. After that, I'm using Intensify and Transient Fortitude, which when combined with the bonus power strength that Nidus gets by leveling up gives me 200% power strength, and I found that this was enough to kill all the enemies on the star chart, which is what this build was designed to do. I'm then using a fully ranked fleeting expertise, which gives me a ton of efficiency, making larva very cheap and spammable, and the negative duration isn't that big of a deal on this setup because we're gonna detonate the larva almost instantly anyway. I then added Vitality for some health and Armored Agility for even more sprint speed on top of Rush and some extra armor. Then of course we're gonna add the new augment Larva Burst, which allows you to recast larva while it's already active to detonate it, and this will deal 300 toxin damage in a 5-meter area. And we top it off with Auger Reach and Stretch for some power range, and this will allow us to pull enemies from farther away, but it also increases the area of effect of the burst. Now this of course isn't the only way in which you can use this augment. You can put it on a high duration build instead, where sometimes larva becomes an issue because every now and then an enemy will get stuck while being tethered to the larva, which will pretty much prevent you from using it until the duration runs out, which on a high duration build could be quite a while. The reason why I went for this setup with almost no duration and I really focused it around this augment is because, well, first of all, the augment is fun. I love how the enemies fly into the air when you detonate the larva, but I also wanted a build that would complement my other setup, which isn't amazing at shorter, lower level missions. And this build just nails it. It's really good at exterminate, capture, sabotages, those types of missions. Missions where you either don't have the time to build stacks with virulence, or by the time you get a decent amount of them, the mission is over. It's also faster, far smoother. It just feels better for running through stuff like exterminate and capture, because with virulence you have to stand still, then you have to cast larva, then you have to stomp, then you do the damage. With this, you can be sliding, jumping, flying, whatever you want, and you can throw the larva, it will suck everything in, kaboom, everything is dead. So I would definitely recommend you give this setup a shot, because even though I wasn't quite sure how this was gonna feel and play when I was first building it, now that I've had it for a couple of days, I can safely say that this is just awesome. Moving on to the Fantastic Fun setup, which is focused around Nidus's entire toolkit. Now for the aura, I am once again using Stand United for some extra armor, but you can use whatever you want. Then to get some extra duration on Parasitical Link and Ravenous, I'm running Prime Continuity, which also balances out Transient Fortitude, which I've combined with Intensify and Power Drift for 215% power strength, which gives me a ton of damage. I then wanted some extra tankiness for high level missions, so I'm running Vitality for health and Steel Fiber for armor. Now, I'm running Hunter Adrenaline here, but you don't necessarily have to use it yourself if you're good at managing your energy with virulence. The reason I decided to use it in the end is because I know I'm a derp and I am bound to balls it up at some point and run out of energy, so I can't cast virulence to get more. It also just makes sense to put it on Nidus because it converts 45% of all damage done to your health after armor reduction into energy, and since Nidus doesn't have any shields, you will be generating energy as soon as you take damage. And finally, I am once again using Auger Reach and Stretch for a bunch of range. Now, when it comes to the setup, it starts off sort of alright. You want to stack enemies as much as possible and build your stacks with virulence. Once you get yourself a couple of stacks, you can link yourself to a nearby enemy, which will split the damage you take with them. It will boost your power strength, and whenever you cast virulence, they will cast virulence as well. And finally, once you feel like you've gathered enough stacks, you can start throwing down Ravenous, which will provide some extra healing if you're standing on the infested ground, and more damage in the form of the maggots. And by the way, the amount of stacks you want to build up before you go ham with the abilities, that's up to you. For me, it's about 10. Now, this is where the build really takes off and becomes just a stupid amount of fun to play. You're using all the abilities all the time, so you're throwing down Ravenous for the healing and to spawn maggots, you are constantly linking yourself to nearby enemies, you are pulling everything in with Larva and then stomping them to the ground with Virulence. It's amazing! There is a reason why this is my favorite setup in the game, because this is the most fun that I have had playing with a Warframe. And if you ever see me in an endless public fissure mission, there is a pretty good chance I'm going to be running this very setup. Because no matter how many missions I run, how many relics I crack, or how many hours I spend in a survival, I will have a blast playing this build. It just doesn't get old. It's tanky as hell, it does a ton of damage, it's a stupid amount of fun to use, and the thing I absolutely adore about this, or about Nidus in general, is that you are in charge of your own energy, because every time you hit an enemy with Virulence, you get a little bit of that energy back, and if you hit multiple enemies, you can actually gain energy by doing that. So if you play smart, not only are you stupidly strong, you are also never going to run out of energy, and that is awesome. And that is pretty much it for the build, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you have enjoyed the video and it was helpful as well, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.